Seeing Sok-ryu and Sung Hyo hugging, they felt they saw something wrong. Because before they always get fight, but why are they now close to each other? Then Sung Hyo admitted that they were dating. Hearing that, their parents were shocked and did not believe it. They explained that their relationship was serious and apologized for not telling them earlier. Then Mrs. Misak asked Sok-ryu to go home. And Sung Hyo asked to go with Sok-ryu, but his mother asked him to explain what happened. Both Mrs. Misak and Mrs. Haesuk, they both can't control their emotions, because when they were fighting, their children were actually dating. At home, Sok-ryu explained to her father and mother that she and Sung Hyo were really dating. Hearing that, Dongjin laughed and didn't believe it. How could Sung Hyo like his sister? Then Sok-ryu explained that their relationship was serious and they were planning to get married. And her mother didn't allow it if he was Sung Hyo. Sung Hyo's mother couldn't believe that her son was busy dating Sok-ryu. His mother was sure that Sok-ryu was the one who expressed her feelings first, but Sung Hyo was the one who liked her first. He liked her since childhood and his feelings grew stronger when they met again. And Sok-ryu had rejected him several times, but he remained persistent. Hearing that, his mother and father couldn't accept it because their son didn't deserve to be rejected. Then Sung Hyo explained that it was only at the beginning. Because now they were dating and she also accepted his proposal. His mother couldn't believe it even more when she heard her son treat Sok-ryu with special by preparing flowers and renting a restaurant. Sung Hyo felt desperate because his mother could not accept his explanation. And his father also could not help him. Sung Hyo desperately climbed the window because he missed Sok-ryu so much. He hugged his lover to calm her down even though their parents had not given their blessing. Because they had been found out, Sok-ryu confidently called him darling. Hearing that Sung Hyo really liked her and felt that his girlfriend was very brave. Then he gave her a bracelet and put it on Sok-ryu's hand. Sitting down with his head down, he proposed to Sok-ryu for the second time. Sok-ryu felt very stupid if she refused his proposal. When Moim was choosing clothes to wear, suddenly Sok-ryu came in and said that her parents already knew about her relationship with Sung Hyo. But Moim was not surprised because she had already received her mother's blessing. Hearing that Sok-ryu was curious about the method she used to get her mother to bless her, Moim explained that the key was to do it sincerely. And she was busy with herself because she was going on a date today. When she and Dan-ho were getting ready to go on a date, suddenly Dan-ho got a call from Sung Hyo. Sok-ryu became curious because it was a call from her boyfriend. And it turned out they were gathering at Sung Hyo's office. Dan-ho and Sung Hyo will be renovating the old woman's house next week. Moim felt it was so good that she couldn't complain. And finally, Moim and Sok-ryu joined them to discuss the house renovation.
괜찮아.
Mrs. Misak met Moim's mother. And Moim's mother told her that her daughter was dating Dan-ho. Mrs. Misak said why didn't she forbid them, didn't Dan-ho already have a daughter? And Moim's mother explained that she couldn't do anything because they liked each other. Then Mrs. Misak explained that Sok-ryu and Sung Hyo were also dating. And then Mrs. Haesuk came and Mrs. Misak saw her and she decided to leave because she didn't want to meet Mrs. Haesuk, and one of them said that the shop owned by Mrs. Misak's husband seemed to be closing because there was a sign that the shop would be closed. Mrs. Haesuk was a bit surprised to hear that. Dan-ho, Yeon-do and Moim is seen having lunch together. Moim asks Yeon-do's permission to be her mother. She knows she can't be her real mother, but she promises that she will always be by Yondo's side no matter what happens. And Yondo is honest that she really likes it. It was the day she had been waiting for and her dream came true. Dongjin gives a gift to her mother and father. But her mother feels like she is dreaming and doesn't believe it because her son suddenly gives her a gift. Even her father also thinks that Dongjin is causing trouble again. Then he explains that he just got his salary and gave a gift to his parents. It was a health supplement because his father and mother were old, so they needed the supplement. Suk-ryu feels that her younger brother is an adult. And at that time, their parents told them that their father's shop would close. Because their father felt that he had entered retirement. Suk-ryu approached her father who was sitting alone in front of the house. She was worried because her father closed the shop. Her father reassured his daughter that he had no problem and felt relieved because he imagined freedom. Hearing that, Suk-ryu became relieved, and if he felt uncomfortable, her father can tell her. According to their family motto is, don't keep your problems to yourself. Sang-hyo, Dan-ho, Suk-ryu and Moim gathered to renovate the old woman's house. And at that time, Myung-woo came and joined them because he felt they needed experts to renovate the house. After arriving at the location of the old woman's house, they worked on the house renovation process. The five of them worked enthusiastically until the house was finished being renovated. Seeing her house, the old woman couldn't believe it because her house had changed so much from before. They made a mini kitchen and also new windows. It was Sang-hyo's idea, so that after she came home from work, she could look up at the sky and take a deep breath. And the old woman was very happy, because her chest would not be tight anymore. She also thanked them for working hard to renovate her house. There were mothers in the complex who were talking about Mrs. Misak's family. They discussed her husband's shop that was going to close and also Suk-ryu, who was unemployed. Hearing that, she was very angry and reprimanded them. She didn't mind if they badmouthed her, but she couldn't accept it if they badmouthed her husband and daughter. They fought and Mrs. Haesuk saw Mrs. Misak being pushed to the ground. She got angry and fought them too. And a fight between them couldn't be avoided. Mr. Bae and Mr. Choi came to the police station in a panic. Suk-ryu and Sang-hyo also came. It turned out that the mothers from the complex who fought with them were also at the police station with quite serious injuries. And they finally made peace seeing the mothers who were battered. Mrs. Misak felt that taking action after so long was so refreshing. And Mrs. Haesuk remembered when she was bullied, she was saved by Mrs. Misak. Seeing their mothers laugh together made Suk-ryu and Sang-hyo happy. It seemed like they had made peace. Mrs. Misak was surprised because Mrs. Haesuk brought a vegetable basket even though she had never cooked. Then Mrs. Haesuk asked her friend to teach her to cook because Mrs. Misak cooking was delicious. But she felt that the instinct to cook could not be taught, so she would cook for Mrs. Haesuk tomorrow. Mrs. Haesuk thought she would not be able to eat her cooking anymore after they fought. She was very relieved because her friend used to prepare and bring food for her when she returned to Korea. Every time she opened the food container, it was filled with her friendship. But Mrs. Misak felt that she always made her feel small and inferior. She could speak English and French and work abroad. However, she was paid to take care of Sang-hyo. It would be nice if she could take care of her son without being paid. Of course, Mrs. Haesuk could not accept it, because that noble job was not paid. Sang-hyo grew up well thanks to her. Raising a human being is an extraordinary achievement. Mrs. Misak also raised her because she invited her to join her family. That's why she won't be formal when she becomes an in-law later. Even though their child gets married, their friendship is still the most important. Mrs. Misak did not expect her to give her blessing. She felt that Mrs. Haesuk is disturbed when Suk-ryu is sick. Of course, she is disturbed and worried when she finds out that Suk-ryu is sick. Because she is the daughter of her best friend. How could she not care? She loves Suk-ryu very much. Actually, Mrs. Misak is afraid that her daughter will be destroyed if she rejects her. Hearing that, Mrs. Haesuk will protect Suk-ryu with her. Just like she raised Sang-hyo, Mrs. Haesuk will also love and protect Suk-ryu. Their family listens to their conversation with tears in their eyes. Then Mrs. Haesuk hugs Suk-ryu, who has been crying since earlier. She asks Suk-ryu to take care of her son. Likewise with Mrs. Misak, who hugs Sang-hyo. Because she considers Sang-hyo her son, if Suk-ryu hits and disturbs him, then she will punish her. And Mrs. Haesuk also says the same thing to Suk-ryu. Seeing them, Mr. Bae and Mr. Choi becomes touched. Suk-ryu invites Sang-hyo to meet. She gives food that she cooked for Sang-hyo. She used to give it to him, but at that time Sang-hyo didn't eat it. He really likes it and eats it with gusto. Suk-ryu will continue to make it for him unless Sang-hyo gets sick of it. She will always make it for him. Hearing that, Sang-hyo feels very lucky. And that is Suk-ryu's proposal, because previously Sang-hyo had proposed to her twice, so she wants to match it. Sang-hyo feels that it is the sweetest proposal in the world. He accepts it happily. And Suk-ryu thanks him for everything. There is only one episode left, don't miss it. Thank you for watching.